do what the apostles did, we will come up with our own ministry template. When they are teaching, we are binding. When they are instructing us, we are breaking. I break. You will break down. May you love instruction.
Thank you for giving that, generic picture of, we are God's creatures. The Bible said, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you have created all things, and for your pleasure.
That's right.
They are and were created. For your pleasure we are, and we are created. So that everything we are doing should bring God pleasure.
Exactly.
Including our sexuality.
Exactly.
It should glorify God. God is not against sex. Yes, he made, I like what the Bible says, he made both male and female.
Yes.
Which is being confused, unfortunately, today. We'll get to talk about that. So, where does the church come in this whole creation's call to sanctification? How then, if God is even calling on his creation to that, how does the church matter in the midst of this call? Where is the church?
Well, thank you very much. What we call the church, from the Old Testament perspective, there's a word called kahal. Kahal, K-A-H-A-L, transliterated, which denotes the gathering of God, the assembly of God, the people of God.
Yeah.
So in the Old Testament, the Hebrews were the people of God, and they can be rightly described as the church at that time, even though the word church is not in the Old Testament.
I remember in the book of Acts, Stephen says the church in the wilderness.
The church in the wilderness.
Yes.
He was referring to the Hebrews, which is represented by the word kahal. Then when you come to the New Testament, the Greek word ecclesia, or sometimes the kuriakos, it denotes the church, what we call the church today.
Yep.
It actually means the call out people. All that this means is that because God is calling on all his children, the whole world, all creation, back to himself, he decided to take a path or a method. And the method he chose was that he will pick a person or a family or a group or a nation.
Yeah.
Then he would reveal himself the more in detail to that person or those people. Work on them. Make them come to a point where they are on the path of that sanctification project. And his whole agenda is
The grand agenda
is that he will use those people he has worked on to work on the rest of us. That is why even in the Old Testament, there's that statement of the people of God, as if the rest were not. It is just God's
access point.
Access point. He's using them, the Hebrews, to affect the rest of us. So what we call the church, because your question is, how does the church come in if he's calling the whole world? It's the church are a people called out of the whole world, so that God will reveal himself in detail to the church. Put them on the path of sanctification, that road, so that through them, he will reach out to the rest of the world. So the church has a role to play in God's sanctification agenda.
So that means that the church is not an end in itself.
At all. That is even the reason why even in the church, there are still issues. And this is what those who are not part of a church,
They don't
understand. Why is it that you people, you say you are the church, you are the people of God, you read the Bible, but there are people fornicating, there are people drinking, this and that. The church is in the process. The church is not refined. It is a tool in God's hand to accomplish something.
Yeah.
So if you are even outside the church, and if I were you, I'll just jump into the church so that my time, I will not be delayed. Because it is like God is using the church. It's time to work on the church.
Yes.
And when he's finished with them,
part of those he is working on.
when he's done with them to a certain point, then he uses the church to come to you. So if I were you, I'll just jump into the church so that, my whole life will not be delayed.
That's right.
So that is it. The church comes in because the church is an avenue. The church is a tool. The church is a mechanism. It is an equipment in God's hand, reaching out to the rest of his world. So the church plays a major role in this work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, if that is it, God has an agenda, a grand agenda of sanctification, like you said. How serious then should the church take this agenda of God, this purpose, this will of God, like we read in 1 Thessalonians 4? How serious should the church take it so that they can accomplish God's purpose? How serious should we take it?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The image I'm getting is like a potter who picks up a piece of clay or a sample, an amount of clay in his hands, and he's thinking of forming a part of a pot with it. But as he tries to form that part of the pot, let's say the neck of the pot or a side, he realizes that amount of clay or that sample of clay, it doesn't give him the flexibility to do that, or there are too many stones in it. One of the things he may do is to throw that sample away and pick another one. So those of us who are part of the church, that is how serious our position is. That if we continuously make the work so difficult for God, he will throw us away and pick a new one. And that is what happened to the Hebrews. And Paul teaches it clearly.
Romans chapter 11.
Romans 11, that you were the actual people that God used. Jesus himself also said it. The Gospels.
That's right.
I came into my own. That's why he used those expressions. It didn't mean that. It didn't mean that he didn't like the rest of the world. He was speaking in context. You are the people that have been selected for God to use you to affect the rest. But it's like you are making the work difficult for God. So he may throw you away and pick some new people and see if he can work with them. So that is our position. That's our place, the church. That's what how serious it is that we can be thrown away if we are not willing.
Very serious.
Very, very serious. And it's a call, it is a call that I think is ringing in the church, that we need to, our time can expire. Because everybody is God's child. It is not only the church that constitutes God's children. Everybody is God's child. Look at people like in the Bible, people like Cyrus. God chose Cyrus. He chose Nebuchadnezzar. God chose people like Rahab. Whilst God chose Rahab, there were Hebrews who were dying in the wilderness. God chose Ruth, a Moabite, a Gentile. And when we are tracing the genealogy of Jesus Christ, it goes all the way to Ruth, a Moabite, a Gentile. God chose Zacchaeus when Judas Iscariot, that slept and ate with Christ, decided to die. So that is how serious our position is. That we cannot take this for granted. That we don't have a permanent position.
We can't tie God's hands and
at all
do whatever we like.
At all.
And think we are his people.
Yes.
Thank you for that